Welcome to the Wisdom Podcast. I am your host, Sierra. And as always, I just want to let you know my intention for this podcast. I just want to reach one person. If I can reach one life, then I've done my job. It's very easy to feel lost or like you're on a hamster wheel in life, especially my age. I'm 28, and sometimes you get lost in all of the titles of being a wife, of being a mom, a dad, a businessman, whatever it is. Um, and the goal is to just start living intentionally again, to make every moment count so that way you can live the life and create the life that you love. So, with that being said, I have a very special guest here with us today. Mrs. Shannon, please introduce yourself, tell the world who you are, let us know.
Oh, well, I'm so honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Yay.
I am just sitting here smiling because I resonate and agree wholeheartedly with what you're talking about. I mean, I'm 30, but I went through a lot of that muck over the past couple of years of just like
Mm,
trying to find yourself. And I'm sure we'll get into it, but
yeah,
just people who are in the thick of it need to know that they're not alone. So I'm just really excited to be
I
here. But
love that. I love that. They're
yeah,
not alone. That
they're not
part.
alone.
Yes.
Not
So what
alone.
do you do? What is it?
Yeah.
How do you when somebody says, "What do you do? Who are you?" How do you define yourself?
I mean, I want to say like my job titles. I know that everyone's always like, you're more than that. But my name is
Yeah.
Shannon Buruchian. I am a holistic health coach and a personal trainer, and I specialize in helping women lose weight and keep it off so they can feel confident in their clothes. Growing up, I was an
Mm,
athlete. So fitness always came really naturally to me, playing
hmm.
soccer, running track. But nutrition
I'm
is
the
really,
opposite.
oh, really? That's so funny. I don't meet many people like
Like,
that. So I'm like, I feel like I want to ask you questions.
oh, please
But
do, because I have a few for myself that I'm hoping you
yeah.
can help me with.
See, for me, nutrition is where I struggled the most. I was so confused around what I should be eating and falling off track diets. And then oh my gosh, almost 8 years ago now, I tore my ACL for the first time. And I was
Mm.
so terrified. I've done it twice, so don't recommend.
Oh
But
no.
yeah,
Don't
but I
recommend
was
it.
I was so terrified that I was going to gain weight because I couldn't work out.
Yeah.
And that's when I found strength training and fell in love with this idea of just being strong rather than just being skinny.
Mm.
And it was after I hired a coach to help me heal my relationship with food that I learned the value of proper nutrition and how to fuel your body in a way that feels balanced and free. And so
Hmm.
now I coach women in creating the sustainable lifestyle for themselves so they can learn how to eat and exercise for their
I
body
love,
and goals and just cut through all of this confusion and overwhelm and just feel really strong and confident in their skin.
I love that. So how did I hear your story of you tore your ACL,
Yeah.
and that's really what kind of launched you into wanting to help others, right?
Yeah.
So how did you come about becoming a coach and finding your audience and your people who you reach?
Ooh, that's a good question. So I came upon coaching in particular. I was a personal trainer for many years in the gyms
Okay.
and in the gyms, in a gym,
In the
in
gym.
the
You
gyms,
was a shit.
it's, um, oh gosh. And I was battling burnout pretty severely, which many personal trainers do.
Mm.
I mean, I was up at 3, out by 4, training by 5. Where I lived at the time was in the middle of the woods, New Jersey. And so the
Oh,
closest gym was like an hour away and just, you're doing the
what?
hustle. Yeah. You're doing the hustle. And so you're up before everyone goes to work and you're training them and, you're training when individuals get out of work. And I loved it. But I didn't love the toll that it was taking on my body. And
Mm-hmm.
at that point in my life, I had to make the decision of what was best for me, which was really hard to do. And I quit that job with no backup plan.
Okay.
And I slept for like a month on the couch. And I've just always had this inkling in the back of my head that I wanted to start my online business. And so I kind of just jumped both
Absolutely.
feet into it.
That's how
I
you
went to
do it.
yeah, I'd gone to school for exercise science. I, studied nutrition a lot. I became a certified metabolic nutrition coach, a behavior change specialist. So I had the education. It was just a matter of putting all the puzzle pieces together.
Mm-hmm.
And I hired a mentor to help me do it because I didn't go to school for business. Like I didn't. know what this whole
Yeah.
online world was. It wasn't big back when I started, before everyone shifted online with the pandemic and everything. And, um, you know, I've always taken the approach of just trying to serve and really
Mm,
help educate women because there is so much misinformation. And
yeah.
so, with that service led mindset of I'm just trying to help, I'm really honored that I've been able to be placed in front of people or meet people at the time when they needed support or, get referrals from clients who have worked with me to help build this community. And that's really what we're focusing on is building
Yeah.
this community of women who just want to learn how to keep themselves a priority or put themselves
Mm,
as a priority for the first time and keep it and be surrounded by other women who are doing the same.
that's huge. So,
Yeah.
if you could just give us like what is your coaching or your like what does that entail for
Yeah.
helping women prioritize themselves and like what does that look like?
Yeah. So the way my coaching is structured is I create programs that I help walk women through and we customize it to their body and their goals. So my
Okay.
signature program is called Built to Sustain. It is a 90-day high touch group coaching program to help women lose weight, build muscle, increase their energy, and fit confidently into their clothes, where I walk them through the
Mhm.
methodology that I've created. So much of my coaching is surrounded around education because anyone can hand you a meal plan, anyone can hand you a fitness program, and you can be good
Yeah.
for a
Yeah.
few weeks, but then we fall off track and we start back over, and it's this whole cycle.
Yeah.
I create programs because I want to teach you how to do this on your own so that over the course of Built to Sustain is 90 days, right? Over the course of the 90 days together, we're tackling all the things that have previously kept you stuck, such as, a struggle
Mm.
with consistency, self sabotaging patterns, poor time management, emotional eating, right? Binging, restricting.
Wow.
And I'm teaching you what to do and how to feel your body, how to balance the stuff that you love with what nourishes you, what to be doing in the gym, right? What shoes to wear, how to balance cardio to weights, you know, while
Wow.
also helping you cultivate the self-esteem and the self-confidence internally to be successful on your own. Because my goal by
Yeah.
the end of the 90 days is that you can just keep doing what you're doing because we're building the habits
Mhm.
along the way. You're seeing the results. You're learning how to do this on your
Yeah.
own. And then when the program ends, you're kind of like set to fly and you can just keep doing what you're doing and making progress and learning how to integrate this into a lifestyle for yourself.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is because most of the time people know what to do. You know,
Mhm.
people know I need to eat healthier. People know that I need to
Yep.
burn X amount of calories if I want to lose
Yeah.
X amount of weight. And this is something personally that I'm speaking about. I
Mhm.
struggle with the mental game of, like you said, staying consistent or self sabotaging. I am absolutely, those are my, and that's what I was going to ask you. And I'm so glad that you
Sure.
said it because consistency, not only in working out, but in life can become very hard for people. Um, because when we're so result driven and like instantaneous gratification, like I want it right now. And if I
Yeah.
don't see it right now, I can't keep applying myself. And that's what I'm working through now. And if I'm being honest, I really struggled because in 2017, going into 2018, I was the fittest I've ever been in my life. Like,
Mhm.
blood work was perfect. I ate perfectly. I lost all of the weight from my first pregnancy. Um, and I was great. But all of my life, I struggled with having imbalances and being able to gain weight very quickly. So
Okay.
when I got pregnant the second time, it wasn't that I just ate whatever I wanted, but I gained the weight so quickly. And that did a lot to my mental, like mentally seeing myself go from the best to like back to where I was in like a few months.
Yeah.
I was like, I just can't keep doing this. Like I was so frustrated that I I couldn't keep it off. Like you're saying, sustaining. I was like, what is wrong with my body? And I became
Mhm.
very mean to myself.
Yeah.
And then once that was over and I had the baby, postpartum just really knocked me and punched me in my face
Yeah.
because you're dealing with body issues, you're looking at your body change very rapidly. Um, so what do you do for the women? Do you have any children or anything, or is it
I
no?
don't have
Okay.
any children now, but I've worked with many
Okay.
women who
When mamas,
navigate a similar
yeah.
situation. Yeah.
So
Which
how does that go for that?
Well, I just want to say I appreciate you even sharing that because you're not alone. And I hope that you hear that. What breaks my heart for women is, like you were talking about, it's so easy for us to be cruel to ourselves. And it's
Hmm.
so easy for us to become our own worst enemies.
Yeah.
And what frustrates me the most with the industry is it has led women to believe that the fact that they struggle is because they lack self control, they lack self discipline, they're unmotivated,
Hmm.
and they've convinced themselves that they're lazy and that they're somehow
Hmm.
incapable. And the bigger reason of why I do what I do is I don't really care about the weight. Yeah, I want you to be healthy, right? I want you
Yeah.
to be able to go into your closet and know that you're close to it. I want you to be able to, when a friend calls you and say, hey, you want to go for this hike? Say, absolutely, because you know your body is capable of it and there's nothing holding you back.
Yeah.
But more than
Yeah.
anything, I want you to just feel like you're enough. And I want you to feel like
Mm.
your body's been on your side. And so, what's challenging about the situation that you navigated, especially and for, mamas and postpartum
Hmm.
and pregnancy, is you go from this place of being just in peak condition and your body is doing what it needs to do in order to carry a human
Yeah.
and develop a
Yeah.
life. And that is so beautiful. And it's such a tender time where you want to be grateful for it, but also how you feel in your skin
Yeah.
directly impacts your mental and emotional health. And my mental health and just speaking on mental health is something I'm so passionate about because I myself have struggled with anxiety and depression and navigated that.
Yeah.
Um, it's something that I experience. And there's such a power in being able to look in the mirror and recognize yourself and look in the
Mm.
mirror and say, I'm really proud of you. And so, especially with the women I work with, a lot of it is just learning how to take back control over what self care, and that term can be a little bit fluffy, but what self care actually looks like so that
Yeah.
in the seasons where it's hard
Hmm.
and you have to navigate not feeling like you for maybe a bigger purpose, like carrying a pregnancy, right? Like I have to
Yeah.
sit at a weight that doesn't feel comfortable, but my body's doing what it needs to do. So, how do I hold that duality?
Hmm.
My goal is to help equip women with the tools or provide them resources or connections with other individuals who can equip them to learn how to have compassion and be our own partner in this versus
Yeah.
being constantly at war with our body and food
Wow.
and how we look and ripping ourselves apart.
Yeah. So you spoke on something about relationship with food,
Mm-hmm.
and I think that's really it's a topic that people talk about, but it's almost like they oversimplifies it, if that makes
Mm,
sense. Like they just
sure.
because it's become this trending term for binge eating and like body dysmorphia, when words start to trend through social media, the true magnitude of that word, I don't think is really like we really look at it to see what that means,
Mm-hmm.
because binge eating is the result of what the real issue is, or body dysmorphia is the result of what the real issue is. And that is our mental health. Mental
Mm-hmm.
health is a huge thing. Or even like myself, like I don't know if you've ever worked with patients or clients that have like learning disabilities, like ADHD and being neurodivergent. Are you really? Are
Yeah.
you a kindred
Yep.
spirit? So
Yeah.
something that I've struggled with all of my life is the staying consistent with that, because on top of all that life is requiring, my brain is fighting me. My brain is literally, and people think that I'm saying, like, I know for a fact that I want to go outside and go for a walk. And my brain literally tells me the entire process. And it's so hard to explain it to someone that's not in my position, because I don't even know how to put it into words. And for so long, I didn't talk about it. I didn't want to talk about my learning disability because I felt like I was making someone else uncomfortable, um, or like it was an excuse. And I realized it's not. It's literally my brain and a severance in my brain that is just like, hey, I have to try extra hard. And I realize what I need to do is make short term goals versus long term goals. Because with ADHD, if I don't see the results So if I say, hey, Sierra, for this day, you need to eat this amount of calories. If I, by the end of the day, I do that, I feel like, yay. But if I say you need to lose 20 pounds in 2 months, and then I look up and I realize, like, with ADHD, we work in that time crunch, and that time crunch, because we don't have a sense of time, it's so hard to, like, I can't wait to have an episode of just about neurodivergency, and because it's real
I can't wait
and
to listen. Yeah. Help it grow up.
it's yeah, absolutely. But it's such a weird world to navigate, because I want to be better, and I'm
Mhm.
fighting my brain to be the best version of myself. So with you also having some type of like neurodivergent, like what do
Yeah.
you do for your personally? Because I know you said athleticism comes easy to
Yeah.
you. In those moments where it's like short lived, like how do you
Sure.
keep pushing?
So it's interesting, and this is going to be unique for each individual because how ADHD shows up for me might be different than you. So I don't necessarily have the
Absolutely.
time blindness um, that many people do,
Mm.
but I resonate with I work well under pressure.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
love I
not
love being under
great.
pressure.
It's not great.
I
My nervous system doesn't love it.
Yeah,
um,
no, not at all.
but so, for example, for me, I don't work a typical 9 to 5. I'm an entrepreneur, so I run my own online business. But I wake up and I'm so hyper aware of my nervous system. Which are you familiar with nervous system work?
Not to the extent of like how to truly navigate it. I hear
Okay,
about it, but
yeah,
I'm not active in like practicing that.
sure. It's a life changing thing. If I
Okay.
highly recommend
Tell
you
me
take the
more.
deep
Tell me
dive.
more.
Yeah.
Yes.
So our nervous system, think like spinal cord, everything from our brain to our gut, and there's two real what's the word I'm trying to think of? Aspects to it. I'm not speaking on
Okay.
this scientifically accurate because the word is escaping me, but we have,
Yeah.
fight or flight that our body goes
Yeah.
into of like stress when we see like a bear or a saber-toothed tiger in
Mhm.
past lives, right? Or back
Mhm.
in the day, or the rest and digest where our body prefers to be. And for me and other individuals who experience anxiety, we tend to run in fight or flight. The society that we live in tends to
Mm.
enhance fight or flight. And what happens is we kind of just live in fight or flight all the time, right? We wake up, we chug caffeine, we drive to work, we're running late, we're getting the kids out the door, we're skipping breakfast,
Wow.
we're waking up and answering emails, we're just trying to get done. It's very fast paced. My type A,
Yeah.
fellow friends, like we are just constantly on the move, go, 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 go. And what the industry will tell us to do is just like self care, go get your nails done, get a manicure, get a
Mhm.
pedicure. And so we live in fight or flight and then we dip these small little tokens to get our stress down. But what I've learned to do through therapy and talking to people who area of
Yeah.
expertise and just learning more about the nervous system, and this is something I coach my clients on now, is I want to flip the paradigm for me personally and for my clients that I learn to live in rest or digest. So I wake up in
Ooh.
a state of calm. And so that when my body goes into fight or flight, I have the tools to bring it back down. Because if we're constantly living in
Ooh.
that place of adrenaline, we see adrenaline fatigue, gut health get impacted, hormones get impacted, burnout is severe,
Mhm.
mental health starts to get taxed. And so I've started to learn how to build my life in a way that supports my nervous system to the best that I can within the time and place and commitments that I have on my calendar right now, right? It's different if you have kids or,
Wow.
where you live, etc. Um, which also as a byproduct supports my ADHD. So for example, I wake up and I wake up stressed. Like I can feel
Yeah.
my nervous system jump as soon as
Yeah.
I wake up out of bed. So the first thing I do is go and work out in the morning after I have breakfast and get ready to help ground myself so that I'm focused for work.
Mm.
And then I will go work at a coffee shop because if you put me in the office with a to-do list, I'm like, I'm going to avoid everything for hours on end and not be productive.
Yeah.
But you put me in a room of
Yeah.
chaos and my brain's like, let's focus, right? So then I work at a
Yes,
coffee
that's
shop,
me. My
yeah.
soul sister.
I love it. I love it. I'm very mindful of caffeine. So I won't drink caffeine after 2 o'clock in the afternoon because that will impact my sleep. And if my sleep gets disrupted, my brain will not only
Right.
from a stress perspective, but we see appetite increase, we see more reliance on caffeine. It's just this cascade of negative events.
Mhm.
Cravings go up. And so, simple things for me are just like you were mentioning is setting small tasks.
Mhm.
I have gotten into I'm a pen and paper kind of person. Like if you could see my desk
Yeah,
right now, I have like
me
14
too.
notebooks. I'm going to write
Yeah,
it down. I'm going to
me
mark
and
it off.
digital don't work.
We don't work. And so it's just about
Yeah.
finding what works for myself
Mhm.
from a productivity standpoint and keeping things as least overwhelming as possible. And then I think of
Yeah.
it with clients too, is focusing on, and I believe you do this. I'm not sure if you realize this or not. Um, outcome, I'm sorry, habit based goals versus outcome based goals. The habit based goals, let's say I want to exercise
Mm.
3 times a week. Cool. Well, then I can take those 3 days, I can schedule it into my calendar, and I
Mhm.
can coordinate exactly when I'm going to do it. And then each day that I check it off, cool, worked out my one day, worked out my second day,
Wow.
worked out my third day. Cool. If I do my 3 days, I know over time the results will come, but I focus on the three versus
Ah,
people who shift and say, once I lose the 20 pounds, then I'll be proud. Once I lose the weight, then I'll
wow.
feel successful. But that could be weeks, months, years down the road. And so
Yeah.
take the short term goal and make it something that excites you and then just turn the wheel,
Wow.
trusting and knowing the
I
results will
love
come.
that. Yeah, I haven't heard of a habit goal. Like
Really?
making, yeah, and not in the sense of where it's relatable. Like you hear
Yeah.
people talk about it, but never put any words behind it. It's just like
Yeah.
said, and then they keep going versus
Sure.
comparing the two because a lot for myself, if I'm being honest, I try to make those goals where like, ooh, if I lose 10 pounds, I'm gonna get that membership at LA Fitness. But
Yeah.
it's
Let's
like,
do
hey,
it. Yeah.
Sierra. But it's like, hey, Sierra, if you go walk like 2 times in the morning, whatever it is, like thinking of it that way. And my high comes from that dopamine feel. Like when I
Okay.
feel that rush of like, yes, I did it. Like even if I'm absolutely exhausted or I hate doing it once I'm done, I get
Yeah.
the high from that, like that dopamine high from
Sure.
knowing that I completed something that I wanted to do. Um, so that just thinking of it like now, like, okay, so let's do a habit. Let's make a habit
Yeah.
goal. Like, what can you start habitually doing to better yourself for the long run? But it's only the focus is now. Like, you're
Focus
going
is
to
now.
get it long. Yeah, you're going to get it long term, but the focus is now.
Yeah.
And I like that a lot. That,
Yeah.
especially for my little ADHD brain.
Yeah. And chunk it down. So if you think of, the big goal, like let's say it's lose 20 pounds, right? What are a few core actions that if you do nothing else because you're busy, I'm busy, busy is just the name of the game. And I firmly
Yeah.
believe that busy can either be your excuse or your reason.
Oof.
If you're busy, you need to be effective with your time and potent in what you're going to be putting your actions towards. You get a return on that energy investment.
Mm.
And so think of it, what's the big goal? What are 2 to 4 really hardcore actions that you know will yield that result? So for women, for weight loss specifically, right? It's I want you sleeping 7 to 9 hours every single night. I would love
Mhm.
to see you strength training 3 to 4 times a week. 5 if you're,
Yeah.
crazy and feeling like it, but like 3 to 4 times a week is more than enough.
Yeah.
Um, aiming to eat 3 to 4 meals a day. Okay,
Mm.
getting a protein, a veggie, a carb, and a fat on your plate because it's going to stabilize your blood sugar. Drinking enough water. And I would love to see you walking. Okay,
Mm.
choose a couple of them and then focus on creating a system that works for you
Mhm.
that reinforces doing the habit. So, for example, with clients, I'm holding up my phone right now. We have an app where we plug their habits into the app, and every single day they can go in, check it off, check it off, check it off.
I
And that
love that.
reinforces repetition. And what we know about building habits is you hear, the quote all the time, if it takes 21 days to build a habit,
Yeah, yeah,
or,
yeah. Yeah,
not
yeah.
true.
We hear that all the
Science.
time.
Yeah, science says it's more like 60 plus days to build a habit, but
Mm.
habits are built based on repetition, not necessarily time. So you'll be more effective if you do something every
Wow.
single day than just doing it, occasionally for
Yeah,
60 days,
yeah.
and so the cool part about taking this approach and now we're just going on this whole habit-based approach tandem, but
I
when
love
you
it.
start when you start to check it off day by day from a behavior change standpoint, you build what's called a streak. And for
Mm-hmm.
us ADHDers, you start to feel successful because you've seen, I've done that for 2 days in a row. Cool. Okay.
Yeah.
And then you're like, I do
Yeah.
day 4, and you're like, go me. Check that one off too. And then you're
Yeah.
more likely to do it on day 5, 6, 7 because you've started
Right.
to build the streak and you don't want to break the
Yeah.
streak. And
You
then it
know what's
reinforces the
crazy?
habit. Go ahead.
What's crazy is like what I do for a living. I set a daily goal for myself, right? So every time I clock into work,
Yeah.
until the day that I no longer have to clock in because Wisdom Podcast will reach and be my sole income, I'm claiming
Yes,
that.
it will. Yes, it
Um,
will.
so until then, I am clocking in to my 9 to 5. And when I do, I set my goal. Once again, I'm a pen and paper, but this is more of a whiteboard because I'm also a doodler. That's just how
Okay.
I'm able. Yeah, I can, when I'm sitting down at a desk job, which is not my goal, because I know I don't like doing that.
Okay.
Like, I like to be up in people's face and like, so at the desk, I just sit there and doodle because that keeps my mind active. And when it's time to apply my brain, I'm not like all the way gone. Because it's not something like I really like I'm passionate about, such as like the podcast.
Sure.
However, what I do is when I set my goal, I'll say like, hey, Sierra, you need to do 5 of these today. And I love every time when I get it done. My first one, I get my little tally mark and I'm like, yay. And then when I get to do my little diagonal tally mark,
Yeah.
because I hit my goal for the day and I get to see the bigger picture, like you're saying,
Yeah.
when you see those streaks and you're like, oh, I got to keep going, like I'm on a
Mm-hmm.
roll. I
Yep.
love that. Now, my question for you is,
Yeah.
what do you tell your clients who struggle with consistency?
Mm.
Like, because consistency is the key to success for anything that you do. But I know a lot of people struggle with remaining consistent. So, what is your tips and tricks
Yeah.
for consistency?
Um, so one thing you're going to learn very quickly about me is my answer is always taking it from the complete opposite side. So most individuals will say, I struggle with consistency. How do I be more consistent? But I would prefer to tackle all of the outside reasons that are
Mhm.
sabotaging your consistency. Because especially when it comes to weight loss, there's so many factors at play that are keeping you from being successful that you're not even aware of in the industry. So
Wow.
let's say if you're not sleeping enough, okay, your appetite the next day is going to be significantly increased. And it's also going to be more, you're going to crave more carbs specifically. So
Mm.
let's tackle the sleep so you no longer experience craving. So it's not a
Mm-hmm.
matter of willpower. Okay.
Mm.
What we see a lot of times with consistency, especially, is individuals saying, I'm just lazy or I don't have the time. Okay, well, instead of taking that as fact, what can we do to increase your energy so you're more
Yeah.
effective with your time? And we can
Mm-hmm.
buy your time back so you have the time for yourself with time management
Mm.
strategies or organizing your calendar. And you have the energy to cook the healthy meal at the end of the day or go to the gym because you actually have the energy to do it versus saying, I'm so tired. Why can't I be consistent?
Yeah. Yeah.
What breaks my heart is there's a lot that breaks my heart in the industry, but what frustrates me is the way that the fitness industry will tell women to lose weight is 2 things: eat fewer calories and exercise more often.
Mm-hmm.
And if we think of your body as a car, that's the equivalent of saying, I'm going to expect you to drive across town with less gas in the tank. It doesn't make sense.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so, what I would prefer to do is equip you to fuel your car so you have the energy to be able to do what it is what you want to do with your life. So,
Yeah.
for example, another struggle with consistency is individuals under eating, and then you don't have
Mm.
energy. But when you actually eat enough, you have the
Yeah.
energy
Properly.
and you're feeling
Right.
fueled. That helps you feel good, which makes doing the things easier. We talked about relationship with food. So many individuals struggle with being good for a few weeks and then eating something they didn't mean to, and then falling off track and starting back over Yeah. But if
Mm-hmm.
we can tackle the mindset, which is really an all or nothing way of thinking, I mean, there's a few different mindsets, but that's a big one. Well, we can learn how to balance what you love with what nourishes you. It doesn't have to be all or nothing.
Oh,
And it's learning how to find the ebb and flow that will unlock the consistency. So it's not just
yeah,
one thing. And that's the challenge. But what we can
yeah,
see is the big 5 to 7 culprits, and we tackle those. The consistency happens as a byproduct.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, that's good. I love that. So, with people, because you spoke on this earlier, and I'm
Yeah,
interested to see how this plays a fact into your coaching or
sure.
being a personal trainer. What have you seen with self-sabotaging? Like, how do people self-sabotage their own well-being or their goals, or like, what is it that you deal with personally in your day-to-day business?
Sure. Self sabotage is a really tricky beast. I would say the number one way women self sabotage is, at least within my coaching practice, is not asking for help.
Mm,
Very quickly early on into working together, they're able to shift out of that struggle with being good and then falling off track and start to develop the consistency. But what we see with women often is that when life starts to get busy,
yeah,
the very first thing to fall is taking care of themselves. And similar to you, when you were found yourself in the best shape of your life and then you were navigating a different season, it's really easy for us when taking care of ourselves falls to become our own
yeah.
worst enemy and have all of that stress and feeling of failure pop up and use that as evidence of why we won't be successful.
Ooh,
And
wow,
it's
yeah.
like, oh, see, I knew I was going to fail because I did it again. And I told myself that this wasn't going to happen, but now I'm struggling. And for
Mm,
some reason, we think we're not allowed to struggle and also be successful because we put it in our heads that we have to be perfect, or what's the point?
wow.
We can have two sides of the same coin: individuals who fear failure, so they won't start, or individuals who start to see some success and then they fear success, so they sabotage.
Ooh,
It's tough.
that's
It's tough.
oh my.
And so when they start to see results and they start to see momentum, they'll do the thing, eat the cookies, skip the gym, and it's usually a little bit more than the one time event, to fall off track because, and this is the fun part for me as the coach, being uncomfortable in our body and being uncomfortable in our skin
Mhm.
and struggling with our weight is, it's easy to stay there. And what I mean by that is it feels safe. It feels comfortable. There can
Even though
be
we're
such,
uncomfortable.
even though we're uncomfortable because we know what to expect. We've
Yeah.
probably been in this situation.
You
We've
are
been in this.
attacking me right now.
I say it with love. I say it with love, I promise. Um,
Okay.
we know what to expect from the standpoint of we probably spent years, potentially decades, at war with our body and food. Oh, if I fall off track, okay, I'll beat myself up. It's not comfortable. I don't love it here. I can't stand going into my closet and my clothes don't fit, or look in the mirror and ripping myself apart. I
Jeez.
want to do something about it. But if I stay there, I know what to expect.
I know
If
it.
I suddenly lose the weight, now I'm going to be seen. And if our self confidence has gotten down, beaten down enough, the fear of being seen is so overwhelming because we don't know what to expect. That's uncertain. And even though we might want it, it can feel so terrifying because we've spent
Mm,
our entire lives people pleasing or putting everybody else first, that suddenly you have to stand in and say, hey, this is who I am and this is what I
yeah.
stand for.
Yeah.
And you're going to judge me and I don't know how to handle that.
Yep.
So what really excites me is helping women step back into confidence of who you are actually enough. Let's learn how to rebuild the trust you have with your body and yourself and use health and fitness as a vehicle.
Mm,
The cool part is that The hard part is it's going to take time to reach your goals. The good part is that it's going to take time. So you get to learn how to become the person who's capable of being seen in the
I'm
process.
sorry. How old are you?
I'm
Did
30.
you there's you oh my God. I'm 28. I'm 20 and I'm saying if let me tell you I'll tell you this right now. This episode was for me. You were meant to come on here to
Oh,
talk directly to me and you've impacted me because you're giving me so much. So I want you to know that
oh,
this
I appreciate that. I
alone
received
that
that.
you've reached, yes, you've reached one person and you're changing my life because I needed this because so long. Oh, for so long, it's like I don't know how to put it into words, and you do it so beautifully where even I feel attacked, it's from love. Like I want the best for you. And I love that you have that charisma about you because there's some coaches who take different approaches where it's like militant versus love. And love is so much easier to accept for me, you know? So hearing it the way you put it, and I got it for a little bit for free, that's awesome.
It's okay. Well, I think, I appreciate that so wholeheartedly and I receive that
Yeah.
so genuinely. And I always think like things happen for a really cool reason and we are meant to talk tonight.
Yeah. Yes,
But
we were.
yeah, you can take the approach of beating someone down and being like, work harder, but it doesn't leave room for humanity and compassion. And I can only
Mm,
speak for myself. I spent so many years beating myself up and it didn't really get me anywhere. So let's try
yeah.
something different, you know,
Yeah.
versus let me learn how to partner with myself and be like, I'm that crazy person now of like, all right, Dan, it's going to be a tough day, but we got this, you know? All right, cool.
Yeah.
Didn't go as
Yeah.
planned. It's okay. We'll try again tomorrow. I just learn how to talk to
Yeah.
myself the way I would to a best friend because I'm the only one who spends my day with me. Um,
I say that all the time. Like, I'm the one dealing with my inner dialogue. And if I'm not
yeah,
my own friend, I'm truly not a friend to anyone outside of me because
sure.
I end up projecting my emotions and feelings and thoughts and everything onto other people subconsciously. And I deserve to love myself and to speak to myself the way I want my husband to speak to me, the way I want my best friend to speak to me. And it's so easy, and I've had this conversation so much on this podcast to be rude and mean and cruel to ourselves and then expect someone else to come in and love us and feel like it's like we are wanting them to be the corkscrews to plug in all the holes we keep stabbing into ourselves, but they won't ever be able to do that because it's self-inflicted. So they can't heal a like a wound that they don't know is there, and we'll just constantly pour out and empty out and being a people pleaser and a self-sabotager and using all of these things. Like this is just this conversation has been very eye-opening for me and I love it. So woo. But no, I just wanted to say I loved what you that's my thing. Woo. So I loved what you said because that's so true. Especially with consistency, because I've always felt like I've struggled with consistency. And hearing you flip it, I love that you always take the other approach because people like I hear multiple times how to stay consistent, but it's like, well, let's flip it. Let's look at the other side of this coin and see what's stopping you from being consistent. And you don't think about that, like you're not aware about what's stopping you or with your time being so limited. Sometimes, like for me, I know now, like I may need to wake up an hour or two before my husband and children to have
Sure.
alone time, to go to the gym, to love on myself the way I need to, so then I can pour out. So I love that. I love that you are sharing your wisdom on this topic, and you're very wise for the age of 30. I don't know what life. I don't know if it's the two torn ACLs or what,
Oh,
but
yeah. A lot of life experiences, a lot of like, but I always share this with every single woman that I work with. Um, we usually have a call just to connect and get to know each other. And
Mhm.
somehow this comes up on every single call. And I just hope a single woman listening to this podcast can hear this. You haven't failed past programs have failed you. Health and fitness are a skill.
Mm.
And I firmly believe that you are a strong, intelligent, educated woman, and you are capable of building a skill when you learn. And with time and practice, you can learn any skill. Health and
Yeah.
fitness is no different, but you need to be able to give yourself. I always take a athletics kind of approach in terms of how
Yeah.
I explain things. I grew up an athlete. Before season, we had preseason. And preseason was the
Hmm.
time where you could show up to the field and you make a ton of mistakes and you learn what doesn't work. Put yourself in
Yeah.
a container where it's safe to make mistakes. You can learn. So when you go out into the real world, you can be successful on your own and have compassion that you
Mm.
never had to be perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, that's beautiful. Well, if you would, because I am full from this conversation, I am just so ready to apply it to my own life. Because like you're very right. I started to get comfortable in the uncomfortable because I knew what to expect. I knew that I could throw on a pair of jeans and it may not fit the way I want, but at least I'm still a little pretty. Versus I know that I want more for myself, not just because I want the number on the scale, but I want to have a long life, a meaningful life. And if I'm telling somebody to be intentional about anything, I should be able to be intentional with myself, and get the things that I crave so badly. So thank you for this conversation. And
Thank you.
before we go, I want you to put your business on the map. I want you to put social media on the map. Brag about it because you have an amazing the app, whatever it is, however I can sign up. Put it right here, right now, so we can all go and follow you, Lauren. This is so awesome.
Oh, you're so sweet. Well, come hang out with me over on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time. My handle's at
Okay.
Shannon Buruchian. Maybe we can link it because my name is very long. But I would love, we talked a little bit about Built to Sustain. We're going to be running the next cohort of the program right after the new year, but we do have a holiday winter challenge coming that we're going to be launching in a couple of weeks. So if you want details on that, I'll be sharing everything over on Instagram. But I would love to gift your audience a little gift, if that's cool.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, cool. So what I see, well, like we talked about with consistency, with relationship with
Hmm.
food, is energy is our number one asset. When we have more
Hmm.
energy, it's easier to do the things, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I also know that breakfast tends to be the most challenging meal of the day because we're waking up, we're
Hmm.
rushing out of the house. I don't know about you, but I don't want to eat another omelet in my life. Like I'm egged out.
Eggs out.
And I'm egged out. I'm done. And if you're someone who can't have necessarily dairy or eggs or anything, it could just be hard. And we might not
Yeah.
necessarily be hungry in the morning. But what we see is that having breakfast that incorporates protein is such a domino. What I mean by that is if we do that, we have more energy throughout the day. We're drinking less caffeine. We feel
Hmm.
fuller longer. We're able to build muscle more easily because we're getting our protein. So I'll leave the science
Mm.
aside, but I've taken the guesswork out of it for you, and I put together an energy boosting breakfast recipe guide, which has 2 weeks of done for you recipes. So it's going to help
Yes.
you burn fat, simplify your morning, fuel your day. We have plant based, vegan, vegetarian, dairy free, gluten free
Yes.
options, everything you need. We'll put the link in the show notes, but you can just head to shannonburuchian.com// breakfast guide and
Oh my
download your free
goodness.
copy. Tons of
Yeah,
options.
you are so beautiful. Thank you for that. Once again, you are about to go international. Everyone around the world is about to hear your name because you deserve it.
Oh,
Like the way
thank you.
you speak highly of even the relationships that you're building with work, your entrepreneurship, the confidence that you have in yourself is very evident. And to see that, that's the type of leader that you want to follow. Like it's like me being a hairstylist. It's like if my hair looks crazy, nobody's gonna want to come to me. If my hair looks like I just burnt it off, but if I
Yeah.
match the image that I aspire to be, it's very easy to submit to what they're giving us, and you are very easy to submit to because you display it so gracefully and beautifully. And I hope you hear that. Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
appreciate your time,
I
and it has
appreciate
been an
you.
honor. Absolutely. It has been such an honor to have you on the Wisdom Podcast. Thank you for sharing your wisdom. And once again, guys, follow her. And if you don't mind, go ahead and subscribe. If you're watching for the first time, turn on your notifications. We'll see you guys next week. Thank you for tuning in. Bye, guys.